Good evening, afternoon or morning, Movie Cat is at the microphone, and today I will tell you about one of the movies about time travels, a fantastic drama of 2006, Deja Vu.
It's a brand new program, it's called Snow White. We can look anywhere, 4 days in the past.
And in order not to lose this channel, I recommend to subscribe. On a holiday, an explosion occurs on a sea ferry in New Orleans, killing 543 people. The investigation is being conducted by the FBI, police, and the ATF Bureau, which is responsible for investigating and preventing crimes involving the use of firearms and explosives. The difficulty is that there was no baggage check-in or black box on the ferry, and most of the evidence is hidden underwater. However, ATF agent Doug Carlin quickly finds melted pieces of explosives on the shore and oily residue on the underside of the bridge, which indicates homemade explosives and makes the incident a terrorist attack. About an hour before the explosion, a woman called and asked to describe Doug's appearance and left her phone number. Carlin calls the number back, but no one answers, and he simply dictates a message to the answering machine. Soon he is called to the morgue. The body of a young woman with burns was found on the shore. She could not have been one of the victims of the terrorist attack, since she was found before the explosion occurred. In addition to multiple burns, the fingers on her right hand were cut off, and there were traces of duct tape on her lips. At the police station, Doug meets her father, who reported his daughter missing. Her name is Claire Kucheva. In her apartment, he finds a lot of unusual things. There are several bloody bandages in the trash can, and letters on magnets form the inscription, "You can save her," and among the entries in the answering machine is his own recent call. Experts soon established the type and color of the car in which the terrorist allegedly smuggled explosives onto the ferry. Claire Kucheva was going to sell exactly the same car and even advertised in the newspaper. Doug Carlin accepts the main version as follows: the terrorist kidnapped Claire for the sake of the car, and in order to cover his tracks, he killed her and tried to arrange her death as another victim of a terrorist attack. While explaining all this to the FBI agents, Doug suddenly notices his partner's car in the parking lot among the cars of the dead. The partner, seems, was not on vacation, as Doug thought, but on the ferry. In the evening, Agent Carlin is invited by the FBI to a secret laboratory. On the computer screen he sees a bay illuminated by the morning sun, but the image looks as if the camera is floating in the air, obeying commands. They explain to Carlin that this is a secret Snow White project. 7 gnomes are 7 tracking satellites, scan a section of the territory in every possible way, and the computer forms a complete copy of the real world and gives the operator an image. But the calculation is very complex and takes 4.5 days. And the complex frame is so large that it cannot be saved and then scrolled forward or backward. The picture can only be seen once. Therefore, the FBI needs a competent specialist. Carlin must tell them where to look to find the terrorist. Doug is not entirely satisfied with the explanation of how the system works, because he still does not understand where the sound comes from at any point, even inside a closed room. Carlin receives a call from a colleague who says that he found many of Doug's prints in Claire's house. It looks like he was just left these traces during the first search, but Doug himself clearly remembers that he acted very carefully. Doug thinks there is no point in watching the ferry 4 days before the explosion. Even if the terrorist was studying the future crime scene, observers will not understand this and will not be able to figure it out. But they know for certain the terrorist will come to Claire for the car, so Doug offers to watch Claire's house, which, fortunately, is within the system's coverage area and, using infrared scanning, can see through the walls. Doug also orders all of Claire's notebooks and other personal belongings to be brought to the laboratory. Watching the girl, the agents see that she seems to be afraid of surveillance. The operator examines the perimeter around the house, but there is no one is found who could spy on her. When the operator is asking who is watching on her, Doug answers, "We are." After many hours of observation, she ceases to be an ordinary crime victim for him. In addition, Doug notices many oddities in the work of Snow White, and when he decides to shine a laser on Claire's image, the girl suddenly reacts to the ray. Carlin understands that the connection is two-way and demands an explanation from the feds. It turns out that in front of him is not a computer simulation, but an open channel to the past where Claire is alive and well. Doug convinces his new colleagues to change the past to stop the criminal and prevent a terrorist attack. Some scientists say that the past is unchangeable. Others believe that as a result of intervention, a parallel timeline will appear. Soon everyone agrees to take the risk. However, it is impossible to send a living organism through the channel, because the electromagnetic pulse will stop his heart. Doug asks to write a note and send it to his desk. He remembers being late in the office 4.5 days ago. However, while the scientists are doing this, Doug is already leaving work and his partner is reading the note. Observers see how the partner tries to arrest the criminal alone and falls, struck by several shots in the chest. Doug understands that exactly this sent note brought his partner to the grave instead of a vacation. The terrorist loads the body into his van. Soon his car must leave the Snow White area, so Doug gets into the Hummer and sets off in pursuit. The Hummer contains a cyber eye, a device that works similar to Snow White, only portable. While driving the car, Doug sees the current road with his right eye, and with the help of his cyber eye, he sees the same road 4.5 days ago. With his left eye, following the criminal, Doug drives up to a country house, destroyed by an explosion. In the past, the house was still intact. The first thing he sees in the present is an overturned burnt ambulance. Who knows how it ended up here? Further, Doug sees traces of strong fire on the ground. At this place, the criminal finished off his friend, doused the body with a flammable mixture and destroyed it. The criminal's face is known and put through an identification system. Now the investigation has enough information to catch the terrorist. During interrogation, he admits to what he did and tells Doug about his motives. The terrorist is sure that he is fulfilling God's providence and is an instrument of fate, but in fact, the guy was simply not accepted into the army due to mental instability, and he decided to show what he was capable of. There is enough evidence to imprison the criminal for life, but this is not enough for Doug. Carlin goes to Claire's apartment and sees the letters again. You can save her. The Snow White system is still a few hours away from the time of Claire's death, and Doug makes up his mind. With the tacit consent of the group leader, one of the scientists, despite previous unsuccessful experiments in transferring living organisms, sends him back to the past. When transferred to the past, a powerful electromagnetic pulse slows down Doug's cardiac activity, so he is thrown firstly into the nearest hospital in a state of clinical death, and there he is resuscitated. Meanwhile, the terrorist pours gasoline on Claire in order to then burn her and throw her into the river, passing her off as one of the ferry victims. Claire resists and scratches the kidnapper. The criminal decides to cut off her fingers so that his DNA will not be found under her nails. Having no bureau document, Doug disarms the guard and steals an ambulance, in which he drives straight into the terrorist's house and manages to save Claire. The criminal shoots at them, wounds Doug in the shoulder and explodes the gas cylinders. The ambulance takes off and overturns. Believing that his enemies are dead, the criminal sets out to blow up the ferry. Doug goes with Claire to her house and bandages the wound. He also arranges letters on the wall to read, "You can save her." Carlin tries to explain to Claire that he saw the future with the help of a special device and must change it. Claire doesn't believe the man, takes aim at him and calls the ATF with a request to describe the agent's appearance, leaving her number to the operator on duty. She still finds it strange that Doug brought her home without asking her address and navigates her apartment like his own. Doug asks what to do if he has to say the most important thing, but he knows for sure that nobody won't believe him. Claire answers that she would take a risk. Seeing the bloody bandages in the bin, Doug understands that it was largely thanks to his actions that the room acquired the appearance in which he finds it during the search. That means he has not yet managed to change anything. Trying to protect Claire, he takes her on the ferry with. However, the terrorist who came ashore sees a familiar car which should not have been on the pier, and he returns to the ferry. Noticing this, Claire also jumps on the ferry to help Doug, but the terrorist captures her and puts her in a car with a bomb and then arranges a shootout with the guards. Claire starts the car at Doug's request. The girl sitting behind the wheel hits the terrorist, and Doug, taking advantage of the opportunity, shoots him in the head. Time is 2 minutes before the explosion. Doug and Claire are surrounded by armed coast guards. It will no longer be possible to calmly clear the mines, and in an effort to divert the explosion from the ferry, They accelerate the car, which falls into the water. Doug frees Claire, but he is killed in a car explosion. Stunned by what happened, Claire sits on the shore. The police officer tells her that she must tell the investigator everything, and this investigator turns out to be Agent Doug Carlin. From the current timeline, they get into the car. Then Claire asks Doug what to do if she has to say the most important thing in her life, but she knows for sure that nobody won't believe her. Doug answers that he would take a risk. Thank you for watching. If you love time travel movies as much as I do, write your 3 favorites in the comments. Also, please don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe.